This episode is brought to you by our small biz shopping directory and the Shop 1 in 5 pledge. We believe that when you purchase from a small online or offline business, your dollar goes further. We're inviting you to shop the directory and take the Shop 1 in 5 pledge with us. It's a commitment to make 1 in 5 of your purchases from a small business, online or offline. It's a way to make an impact together where and when it matters most. Because the truth is, our purchasing power matters now more than ever.
When you buy from the directory, you're buying from a real person. Our goal is to shine a spotlight on small product businesses and buy from each other. Here's what you can do to make an impact. 1, take the pledge. Make the commitment to shop 1 in 5 of your purchases through small businesses.
2, shop the directory. Don't know where to find small businesses online? We created the Small Biz Shopping Directory to make it easy to support, shop, and share small businesses.
3, share the directory. Imagine if each of us told 3 to 4 people to shop the Small Biz Shopping Directory. It would be incredible and life-changing to so many small businesses. Tell your friends, family, and social network.
You can take the pledge at shop1in5.com and shop the directory at theproductboss.com/shop now. Don't worry, all the direct links in this episode will be linked in the show notes.
Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Minna an Amazon guru that has built a multi-6-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, with my visionary and integrator co-host, Minna. Hey, Minna.
Hey, Jacqueline.
Okay, so a lot of you are probably thinking, what are you ladies talking about? And some of you might be thinking, oh, I know exactly what they're talking about. Well, we're talking about visionary versus integrator. And this is all inspired by the book Rocket Fuel, written by Mark C. Winters and Gino Wickman. Have you read it yet?
I think a lot of people definitely have read it because we talk about it all the time. We have it on audiobook. I will tell you, I think I definitely need to get a tangible book copy that I can hold, because every time I wade through that audio file, I fall asleep. Even though it's super interesting to me, I think it's the audio rhythmic, the rhythm of the voice on there, it like lulls me into a deep sleep. So, but it is super interesting figuring out which one you are and how that applies to your business.
Right. And, I think why it's a book that's dense, it's a business book, and you're trying to figure out, what do I need to pull from this book? And so I think that tangible, but if you like to listen to things on the go, that's great too. So Rocket Fuel is a book, and it says the one essential combination that will get you more of what you want from your business. And so there is a test that you can take, and Minna and I have taken this test, and the test is, we'll put a link in the show notes, but it's blastoff.rocketfuelnow.com. And you can take a test to find out whether you're a visionary or an integrator. But before you do that, let's jump in and talk about what is a visionary and what is an integrator.
Right. As an entrepreneur, Gino Wickman actually wrote a different book. It's called Traction, and he created the entrepreneurial operating system. So he really has a basis of like a framework of how big businesses can be still entrepreneurial, and a big component of that is the CEO. Right? The CEO, and if they're visionary or if they are an integrator. And so we took the test because at, the CEO level, being a partnership, Jacqueline and I are both in that role. And so it was super helpful to see how our brains work and how we can proceed in building our business together.
So let's talk about what a visionary is and what an integrator is. So visionaries are, and I'm going to read this off of eosworldwide.com. It's a blog, and it was written by Mike Patton. So I'm going to read it just to use because from the creators' mouths, like this is their website. So
yeah. And plus he really, it really simplifies it. I like how he words it. It's really easy to understand.
Mm-hmm. So visionaries drive creative thought and innovation. Visionaries are the dreamers in the organization. A visionary is that person who is always coming up with a list of ideas every week for the business and who is a natural creative problem solver. Visionaries tend to operate more on emotion than on logic and strongly value the company culture. Visionaries offer integrators a creative insight to the business, while integrators provide the logical and structured approach that is also needed. So that's a visionary. Now, an integrator. Do you want me to read it?
Oh, sure.
Okay. And I was like, maybe you want to take turns reading, Minna. So integrators maintain business harmony. So this is an integrator. In order to maintain harmony among the major functions of the business, every company needs an integrator. The integrator can have many other titles, but no matter what you call it, the right integrator for any organization is the person who has the unique ability to manage daily issues as they come up and the ability to integrate all three major functions of the business: sales and marketing, operations, and finance into one harmonious group. Put simply, the integrator acts as the glue that keeps the team together.
So we took the test. Jacqueline doesn't have her score, but I will tell you, I remember it being visionary 100%.
Yeah, like 98%.
Right. And I have my score, and I'm kind of a combination of both because it actually told me I was neither when I took the test. It said, you may not be, you may not, quote unquote, you may not be a visionary or an integrator. So I call myself like a visigrator or an intergeneer or intergenary. Okay. So I was 84% score on the integrator and 69% on the visionary. So I'm definitely kind of in between the two. But I will say when I was taking the test, I definitely leaned more towards the integrator. I was, when I took the test, I was thinking, ooh, I feel like I'm a visionary because I come up with ideas all the time. I execute a lot of different things. I really thought I'm a visionary for sure as well. And then when I took the test, I knew instantly that I had an integrator's brain. I was like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Oh my gosh, this is me, up to 84%, right? But I obviously had some visionary skills in there too. So it was really interesting to see that in the book. Actually, that in Rocket Fuel, the integrator works for the visionary. So he distributes emails and everything, and he actually says there cannot be two visionaries, basically because it will double the chaos of a corporation.
Like giving her a look through the screen.
Double the chaos. I thought that was really interesting because in this case, there basically are two visionaries, right? And as an integrator, I actually don't work for you. I work for the business. So ours is a really different situation. Obviously, I want you to go into reading this book with open eyes, basically, and not feel like this is the end all be all. This is a book that is super beneficial to learn about, but it definitely does not fit you into a bucket all the time,
Yes. So I found my score.
Okay.
So I'm 82 for visionary.
Okay.
This is what it says. It says a typical visionary has most of the following characteristics. He or she tends to be a founding entrepreneur, is a great leader, has lots of ideas, is a big picture thinker, is a relationship person, is a creative problem solver, is a great salesperson, and is a grower and builder. Okay, sounds great, right? Then it says, unfortunately, he or she also creates chaos, has no patience for details, has ADD, gets distracted by shiny stuff, and wants to implement every single one of his or her ideas right now. That's why the integrator is so important. It sounds like they're reading my palm.
I should find mine. But I wasn't either one. I don't think I ever even got that thing.
You might have to look in your email.
Yeah, I'm going to look in my email.
I chuckle because, Minna and I have been if you're listening, this is the end of 2020. I've traveled across America back to California. We're living a very different life during this pandemic. We're kind of sort of like on vacation, I guess, in the way that I'm on the road. And I get really inspired when I'm on the road. I know when I go on vacations, if I'm like laying out, I'll start to think of things and get really excited. And that's sort of when my brain becomes way into my visionary mode. And so I've had a lot of ideas over the last couple months. And we've also had a very busy time. We're coming off of one of the best years of our business. We're also coming off of a time where our team has had to implement a lot of things for us, and they've been really busy. And then I'm hitting my visionary part of me, like my brain is just going, and I'm like, we should try this, and we should do this, and what if we do this? And my brain is just sparking ideas, and it does add to, let's call it the chaos, as what they were saying, and also the wanting to implement. Like I get so excited about the ideas that I have. I want to take action on all of them, but that doesn't necessarily work. And I think the benefit to Minna and I is we are visionaries, and we vision in a different way also, which is great because I think that's what adds to this business. Minna and I, we've told you our personality tests that we're exactly opposite. But the integrator part of your brain is the one that says, okay, that's a great idea. Now, how are we going to do it? And then can break it down, just like the blog had said, where the integrator takes into account the three major functions of the business, which is the sales and marketing, operations, and finance, where I'm like, let's do this. And then you're like, hold on, but how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the partnership that works so well for us as well.
So I found my results. It said, the reason why I get both is because it says in my integrator one, it says, it looks like you're probably not an integrator. Take the visionary quiz. And in the visionary quiz, looks like you're not a visionary. Take the integrator quiz. So I think that I'm just able to look at both things. So I don't actually have solid results, looks like.
You're a visigrator.
Yeah, clearly. But I will say that for the integrator, the real integrator role in our business, it's Lauren. She has the brain. Like whenever I talk about KPIs or I talk about finance, like they were talking about like departments and stuff, that excites her. Right. And so she was just talking about that the other day when we were talking about 2021 visioning, that she was getting lost in this Milanote board, which is kind of like a Trello board that I had created. So she really is the integrator. I'm kind of the in-between of the two, though I do enjoy being in both. But naturally, I think I am an integrator. Like my brain defaults to that. And then Jacqueline's brain defaults to being a visionary, right?
So let's talk about, this is us as a partnership, but let's talk about ourselves in our own businesses, because I don't have a business partner in my business. You do have a business partner, but we could kind of talk about, because we wanted to have this conversation with all of our listeners, because we want you to think about this. We want you to take the test, figure out what you are, a visionary or an integrator, or as Minna is, a visigrator. And that's made up. We're going to trademark that right after this. No, just kidding. But we want you to think about that. And so let's talk about me as a visionary in my business. So Designer Consulting Co-op, right? Started it when I was 26, ran this business, successful business, had a team. So as the visionary of my business, as the CEO, as the founder, I came up with the entire idea of my business and I was running it. But there's only so much. So when it was just me as a solopreneur, I could get things done, right? I knew I had to get it done. I was working with clients. I did what I needed to do and I got things done, right? I kind of acted a little bit like their integrator because that was the role I was hired to do. But what I'm finding, I'm like 14 years into my business now, maybe 15, I don't know.
You don't even know how old are you? It's like, how are you going to do the math?
Permanently. I know. I mean, I am only 27 now, so I guess a year. No. So what I've moved into with my business is that I actually do act as a visionary for my clients now, right? I'm the big idea person. I tell them where to find the connections of what they need to make their clothing lines or their accessory lines. But I'm no longer the integrator or the implementer. What my business was prior to the last few years was I had a team of people. So I was like, here's your ideas. Yes, let's do this. Let's design that. But I had a team. So I had Jamie, who was my first, she was like my main person. She was the one who ran everything, right? She was really my integrator. But to a point though that she wasn't fully on board. Actually, she was probably more of an implementer. I didn't have a full integrator because I had people filling each role,
I
but
think you
not
were both, to
counter.
be honest,
Mhm.
because even now, like when I see you working with your clients, for example, you're their like VIP consultant, right?
Right.
You're their visionary, but you actually break it down for them. So you really are their integrator too, as far as like giving them the ideas, and then they have to hire implementers to do it.
To take the steps. So
Yeah.
let's explain what an implementer is since we've added another.
Yeah. I can't find it in my email because I'm not, but it does say, let's see here. Let me see if I can find a
An
better.
implementer is the person who does the tasks. So
Implementer is right.
yeah. So the integrator is the one that's like, and I'm going to use this cake analogy because we've used it in our own business. So
Before you do, I want to
Oh.
read this part that he talks about the two together, and I think that'll help when we describe the cake. Where did I see that?
Swear we prepped for this podcast.
We did. There's just a lot, and it's, you know, like Jacqueline said, it's like when you have a book, it's a very dense, thinking, thought-provoking book, and it's somewhat cerebral. So, okay, it says the winning formula. The visionary / integrator relationship is a 2-piece puzzle. That's why I think you're both in DCC. Even the most inspiring visionaries cannot do it all alone. And the ideal integrator will fill the void, seal the gap, and complete the winning formula. So I think that a lot of times it's toggling back and forth between the two. It's like, you know how when we say we make one complete person, in a way we do. We make a fantastic CEO together because we can use both sides of our brain. In that time when you were the integrator / implementer, remember when you used to actually do production for your clients? That was probably when you built up your skill set to understand the integrator part, you know? So that I wanted to say that before we go into the cake analogy, so you understand like the workings of approach when it comes to visionary versus integrator.
Right. And, and I was at one point not the CEO. I was at one point an employee of other companies. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we move through this and we learn. So as we're talking to all of our listeners, and as you are the founders and technically the CEOs of your business, we also want you to sort of look to who you are, what your role is, right? Are you always coming up with a ton of ideas, but you feel like you can't get those ideas done? You're like, these are genius ideas, but how do I need to duplicate me. And you think that it's you that you need to duplicate to actually accomplish all the ideas. In fact, it might not be. It might be that you're the idea person and you need that integrator to come in and organize it for you and say, that's great, but what's the finances? What's the marketing that's going to be involved? We want to launch this. What are we going to do? And they break that down for you. And then from there, sometimes you can get an integrator that also acts as an implementer initially, but as your company grows, then it goes to the integrator is like, okay, that's great. We want to launch a whole new collection. Wonderful. These are all the pieces we need. Then we need to get the implementers, which are the people who are like, who's doing the marketing or who's creating your Facebook posts or Instagram posts, who's making your jewelry or your product, who's doing all the things. And that we just want you to wrap your head around this because I know a lot of you are solopreneurs or small teams. And as you grow bigger, that's the goal, right? We move you to the top. Even if you do somewhere live like Minna and the integrator or the visionary, I think as the creator of your business, there is still a strong level of being a visionary for your business in particular.
Yeah, I think it's, the way that I think of it is that I'm a visionary with the integrator's brain. And I really do think that you are a visionary developing your skills with an integrator in there. So, though you bring on an integrator, let's say in this book, I know they tell you to have somebody fill the void. I don't think that that's true for small businesses. I really think that you need to bring on an integrator to ask the right questions, but you have to be open to the fact that you have to develop those skills as well, So, when you hire on, that person is a team member. They're not the person that's like the fill the void person.
Right. They're also not your partner unless you've brought them on as a partner. Mm-hmm. I would say like a designer consulting co-op, I always thought I need a business partner. That's what in my brain was like, I need someone who understands business. I think that's probably a little bit of it too, right? Because I liked the creative, the visioning, the big ideas, the sales calls, the partnerships. And I kept thinking I needed a partner who could understand, as I'm putting it in air quotes, like the business side of it all. Well, in fact, I didn't. And like Mina said, I did step into that role. And for my clients, I can step into different roles, right? I can break it down for them and say, this is how you start a business, and this is how you sell your clothing line or whatever you need to sell when you sell it. And this is how you continue to grow. So, Mina, for you and in Little Labels, because your partnership is with your husband, what is the role that you take? Are you visionary, integrator? Where do you
I'm
stand in there?
definitely visionary, but I will tell you, so this is why I think that you don't need a partner. I think that's what a lot of people think when we talk about this role, that they need a partner. But I want to go through my journey, like how you did with DCC. So when I came up with Little Labels, I really started with visioning, because I really have this skill of flipping things in my brain, is what I call it, that I can see the big picture, but I can break it down really easily, like super easy. Like when I'm laying down, I can pretty much figure out the plan in like a whole 360 degrees, like super easy. It's just a skill that I really became accustomed to learning how to do. Like practice makes perfect in a way. I always had to do it. When I was doing like annual reports, I had to flip, what am I getting from the illustrator, blah, 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 all these different components that I had to put together. So when I thought of Little Labels, I actually started with like, what's my skill set? And I actually want to come up with a product, because at that time I had already developed a skill set with knowing about commercial printing and doing annual reports, leading a team with, because I would go into marketing departments and create annual reports, for example. I would use their team, but also I had to hire like copywriters, illustrators, all the things that I didn't have. And then at the end result, the deliverable was the annual report. And I would have to go to like check out it at the press and everything. And so I started with the idea that, okay, I know how to private label all these items from China that I'm importing and putting onto Amazon. And I figured that all out. I literally figured out all the workings of Amazon. I actually could see it at up like a very helicopter view, all the way down to, ooh, this is the things that they're trying to do at a beta level. And so I thought, oh, well, I really want something that's built in the US. Well, I'm going to have to build it myself. And so as I moved through my daily life, I was like, this is the things that I need. So I'm always in that. That's why I believe that it was the entrepreneurial part of me that thought of that initial idea. But I was pulling from my integrator brain. Like I was like, well, that's not possible. Well, that's not possible. But then when I hit the idea of the label, I was like, that's actually possible. What can I do to research more about it? And that's initially the idea of an entrepreneur, that research and development that goes into your first product and the proof of conception. So I started thinking, okay, well, what do I need now? And I actually became both in the very beginning, because my husband wasn't working with me at the very beginning. It wasn't until I grew that he came on halftime, So at the very beginning, I was the one who figured out Amazon. I was the one who figured out the printing and everything and the safety stuff. And like I was the implementer, the integrator, and the visionary. But it started with the integrator/visionary brain. And then I just researched everything and brought on partners. I do air quotes on partners, because it was like partners for third-party logistics, or partners for, not real partners, mostly like tools and Amazon, and here's where I can go for this, or here's where I can print this. It wasn't like a partner in my business. It was a vendor essentially, And so that's kind of where I stayed. And then I actually brought on my husband, who has a really true integrator brain, and he does the logistics and the shipping and the fulfillment and the inventory and all that stuff. So that is natural to his brain. And he just basically came in where I would be able to work on the creative ideas as I wanted to. So I think it's evolved for sure.
And I also think, as you're saying that and just reflecting on my story, that it's probably the stuff that feels really easy, and then the stuff that feels
Hard.
challenging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could do all that. I've done, oh my God, all the things, like for starting a business, running a business, hiring, all the things, and for other people's businesses. But it's the stuff that you get really excited about that feels like it's fueling you. I guess it's rocket fuel, right? It's the stuff that feels like it's exciting. You're like, I love this, and I can do this when I have my energy. Because, for example, Lauren, who's our integrator in our business, Mina created like a whole organizational board for 2021, and Lauren's quotes were like, oh my God, this makes me so excited, right? So she's looking at organization and so excited. And me, I'm like, okay, cool. Good job, friends, So I think it's what excites you. So like for me, when I'm in that visioning mode, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I have all these ideas, but then it's the integrator part that needs to make it actually happen. So I think as you're all thinking, even before you take the test, am I a visionary or am I an integrator? You can also probably start to think like Minna it was her husband, but he fills a big part of the integrator role. So it allows her to stay in her visioning. It allows her to stay the visionary for little labels. And then, and that's pretty much also for our business. You can act as integrator, and you do that a lot when we're visioning and you break it down. But the actual integrator in our business is someone we have brought on and hired to make it happen.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people, almost always an entrepreneur is somewhat visionary, because they visioned to be brave and create a business and have a product. But another example of this would be people take courses, right? It's like you're hiring somebody, but really you're just jump starting the integration of things, right? They've already broken it down for you and you're going through the course, right?
So I want to go a little deeper about the course part. Some people have said to us, and this was brought from them, that our students in Multi-Stream Machine had said that they feel like Multi-Stream Machine is the integrator in their business. They're still solopreneurs or small teams. They might be visionaries with implementers, right? So I'm going to talk about one of our jewelry companies that has said this to us. She's the visionary. She creates all the design. She has a team that makes everything and ships everything, but they're the implementers, and they're kind of missing the integrator that's saying, this is all the things you want to do.
These are the pieces, right?
Yeah. And this is how you're going to do that. And so Multi-Stream Machine, I think what they were saying is like, okay, it helps me break it down. It helps me look at the finances. It helps me look at my inventory. It helps me look at all the systems, let's call it. And then the growth of the business and marketing of the business, social media or email, or getting onto another platform, and then breaking it down into steps to look at this. And even the idea in the course where we talk about what's right for you in your business right now. So I just want to read this other part from the blog about visionary and visionaries without integrators. And then it's a recipe for chaos.
Then we can go into our cake analogy.
Perfect. So what is a visionary? A visionary is a person who has lots of ideas, is a strategic thinker, always sees the big picture, has a pulse on your industry, connects the dots, and researches and develops new products and services. So as you're all listening, does that feel like you? Visionary typically is the founding entrepreneur, operates more on emotion, and has ADD, but not always. This person is great with big relationships, the culture of the organization, and solving big, ugly problems, not the little ones. Seeing things others can't, creating and holding the company vision, and is great at closing big deals. Visionaries are the creators of everything. Now, then it goes on to visionaries without integrators, a recipe for chaos. So on the other side, a visionary isn't good at holding people accountable, doesn't like details, doesn't like running the day-to-day of the business, isn't good at following through, gets distracted easily, and is always trying to get 100 pounds into a 50-pound bag. All of this can create a lot of chaos for an organization. If you are a visionary, your job is to delegate and elevate yourself to your true God-given skill set. This will require that you have a strong integrator in place so that you can fully assume the visionary role for your organization, freeing up your energy and creativity to grow your company, protect your vision, wow your customers, get more business, protect your culture, and stay 3 steps ahead of everyone, including the competition. And this is one caution. It's vital that you, as a visionary, trust and work closely with your integrator. Your integrator will serve as a great filter of all your ideas and protect the company from the chaos so your organization can stay focused and work efficiently. Amen.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about the cake analogy. And so this is shout out to Stacy from W Collective, because she helped me sort of see this and use this analogy. So a cake, you want to make a cake, right? Someone's birthday party. You're like, I'm going to make the mermaid cake. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be all these colors. I want, mermaid tails made out of chocolate sticking out of it, all the things that you want for this cake. And you, the visionary, can imagine this cake. You know what flavor, the color, you're thinking all the things. Great idea, right? But the integrator, if you were sitting there and you're talking and you're like, this is the cake I want to make, the integrator would be like, great idea. Now, how are we going to make the cake? What
Mhm.
are the ingredients we need for the cake? When are you going to start prepping for this cake? What do you need to order and buy to make the cake? How soon do you have to get started on it to have it ready for the birthday party for the cake? What else am I missing? Just all the
Well,
things.
yeah. Will the person like the cake?
Did the person tell you that they wanted the chocolate flavor?
Right. Mhm.
So you're thinking, so the integrator is like, that's great. Now, how are we going to do it? Do we have all the things to do it with? Do we have the time to do it? Do you have it in your budget? Or maybe you can't buy the pearl sprinkles because they're really expensive and you have a budget for this cake. So the integrator would look at that as you're coming up with the ideas and say, well, how are we going to get there? And then
Right.
you're like, you would discuss it. And then the integrator would be like, great. Thank you for this idea. This isn't like a perfect world. I'm going to create the whole plan for making this cake. I'll order all the sprinkles and the frosting and the batter that we need to make, and I'll time it out and I'll say, okay, we need to get ready by this day. And this is in the budget. So we'll spend X amount on each component. Great. That's it. We're going to have this cake ready for that birthday.
Mhm. Can I pause for a second? I think there was a big step that you missed, probably because you're not an integrator.
True. I don't know why I'm explaining the integrator part.
Yeah. The initial thought by any integrator would be why? We want to make a cake, but the end result, the end deliverable is we want to have a beautiful cake to give them. But is the cake that important? Should we even attempt a cake? Or is it something else that we want to do that gives the end result of this beautiful thing you're presenting the person? That's
Touché.
where you start.
Touché.
That's the integrator's first question. And then they make the plan for how to make it happen if that goes through that first filter.
Okay, so then the why would be, why do you want to make the cake and not buy the cake? Maybe?
Yeah, right. Why would you want to make the cake? Yeah, do they want the cake? Is it something that you want to make, or is it something the birthday person actually wants, right? My husband actually doesn't like cake. I got him pies, for example, right? Also, do you even have the time to make the cake? Do we have the team members? And is the cake where we want to put all of our time and our schedule? Because when you take time and money towards the cake, now you have time and money that needs to go towards getting another gift or the party or, the goodies bags or whatever it is. So it's like fitting it into the plan. Is the cake that important that you shift other things around? So that's the initial thought. And then you break it down.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're here. Should we make this cake? So what's the next part then? Okay, so we come up with that idea and we're like, well, do we do it or we don't do it?
Mm-hmm. Right. That's the question. That's the back and forth. If you don't have an integrator, they won't ask the right questions.
And you'll be like me and you'll be making a cake and throwing a party for 50 people
then you're
and
like,
not sleeping.
Why did I make this cake? I could have just bought this cake.
Because we're just telling you my real life.
I could have just focused on this other stuff. The integrator's role, it talks about the departments and stuff, but it really is like when you buy a course, it helps you focus. You know what path you're on. But you have to, the initial part of any course is to pick your path. You actually have to, we say pick your adventure, but it's like, oh, I want to do this now, or I want to focus on this module or whatever, right? You're picking and you're going through your own filter. So the cake. So that's an integrator's role. Well, if you're a visionary without an integrator, then you just go straight to making and you actually don't go to a plan that's like, oh, okay, well, at 1 p.m. is the cake blowing. Will this get done in time? And was it worth it to wake up at 5 a.m. to put this in the oven because I had to do all this other stuff, for example, right? We should have done this on a Thanksgiving analogy because making the Thanksgiving meal is super hard.
Right. People will use it with cranberry sauce, right? They'll be like, why do they get cranberry sauce out of a can? Why make it when you can get it? And I'm always like, I'm going to make the cranberry sauce. But that's really my only contribution when I'm with my family. But it's the same thing with like pies. Do you make a homemade pie or do you go buy the pie? But nonetheless, about Thanksgiving or birthdays, because really, truly, I make the cakes for my kids' birthday parties and then throw the party at my house. And I kind of procrastinate it, right? I do it on the weekends. I don't sleep the night before. I'm still making it. I'm stressed. I'm like, who else is going to decorate stuff? Like the adrenaline goes nuts because I had the whole big idea and it's a great idea.
You feel rushed, right?
Yeah. And then I feel overwhelmed and like, these were all great ideas. And my husband's always looking at me like, why do you need it to be, I'm like, it's like, not that it's Instagrammable or Pinterest, but it's like, I'm going to cut out the decorations instead of buying the decorations. So maybe you could be my integrator for my kids' birthday parties in a post-pandemic world.
But in that case, right, the cake is important because it's part of a tradition that you do with your kids. Then in that case, you outsource the goodie bags or the setting up the tables or, whatever it is, you order in the food instead of making the food, know? And so that is the integration of like, this is the departments, this is what it falls into, and this is the calendar of everything. Because when you give energy to something, it takes away from something else.
Correct. So as you're thinking about this in your business, you can use a cake analogy, you can use Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever the time that you can think about this, maybe even in your personal life versus in your business, but you may be looking at this in your business. So what's the answer? Do you go hire an integrator right now? Integrators aren't super easy. It's not like you're just like, you put up a listing and say, looking for an integrator in my business.
You know what? We're darn lucky we found each other because our relationship actually really, really works. It could have been, I think that's probably, like with the partnership before, like that's the nice thing about all these tests, right? They give you insight and this self-awareness of how you work with others. It's something that I never did when I was in my other partnerships that probably would have been pretty beneficial,
Yeah, I mean, I've even taken the Colby with my husband. There's a whole other test. And, like you could just like look at the person and be like, oh, okay, I understand that's how their brain works.
You know what's so funny? So I never realized this, but there's the fact finder, there's the integrator. It's called the integrator and the quick start and the follow through. Well, the integrator in that case, remember this is written by a whole different person, an institution, the Colby assessment. The integrator there is someone who, like, if they're passing by a machine, they need to know how the machine works. Right. So the integrator, that might be that true in our case because we're talking about business. But I actually scored like a 2 on the Colby score, which is 2 out of 10. So I was not an integrator.
According to that, me too. I was really low on that.
Not in like real life, like
it's like
I don't
we could
care
look
how
at
the machine works. I care how my business works. We could look at a vacuum.
Works. Yeah, we could look at a vacuum and say, yeah, the vacuum looks great. I read all the things. I'll go with that vacuum. Or if we were fact finders, do the research and say, oh yeah, this does all the things. It picks up pet fur. I'm going to get this vacuum. But an integrator in the Colby test would actually say, well, how does it work? What's the suction on it? What's the, electric capacity, and like really break down the machine to understand it before they take
apart a toaster and put it back together, for example, to know how it works. Whereas I'm like, this toaster's not working that well. Let's
Amazon, I need to order a new one.
But, that just goes to show you what lights you up. Because in business, I can look at that. If it's a business that's not working well, I can show you where the holes are, right? Whereas like if it's a toaster, I just don't care.
And for me, for business, I can see where the holes are, but instead of going I'll go deep on it, but I'll also say, this is the big idea. So here's where you can go and grow into, right? Here's some ideas for you to go towards, and then let's figure out the steps to get there. So again, going back to hiring an integrator, if anything from this podcast episode that we want you to take away is, one, identifying where you stand in here. If you have a team, looking at your team and thinking, do I have someone currently on my team that could be an integrator? You could have them take the tests to see where they land, right? Because you don't want another visionary in a role of like, as your, director of operations. You need someone who's more in the integrator section. That would be a director of operations. And when you're thinking about expanding your team, like let's say you're a solopreneur, right now you may be all the things. But as you think about what your next hire is, what do you need? Do you need an implementer? Like, as the first hire, someone who's just going to make more product for you because you need to duplicate the making to grow, to hit certain revenue. But at some point, one of your hires needs to be the person who allows you to be the visionary, who allows you to be the creative person, the big ideas, the partnerships, the thought creator for your business. And you're going to need someone below you that then is the one that deals with all the people, that makes sure it all gets done. Because that's when, as we're, our 7-figure CEOs that we work with, they really need that person to allow them to keep building their businesses. If they're stuck in this person wants to move their desk, or we need to order more gold or more candle wax or more whatever, then they get stuck in that and it doesn't allow them to grow.
Yeah, I love that. Because a lot of when we hired on Lauren, her significant role was to save us time and help us make money, right? Because we're making the money, the ideas, the visions, and all those things. And that's actually like how I think too. Like time and money, because they're both the scarcity factors, right? Like, okay, you want to make a cake for Willa's birthday. Is this worth the time, or is it worth the money just to buy it? Like and then also, why is it that you want to do it? Why is it that you want to spend the time on it? So that's the integrator. The implementers, like what Jacqueline was saying, the making and the doing and all that stuff, like the first hire is usually a maker, usually hires a maker, because you are trying to hire another person of yourself. And then as self-development, usually I would say you go to coaches or courses to be the funnel, the filter of, should I do this? What should I focus on? My wheels are spinning. I feel like I have so many ideas. You know how many times we have to tell our clients, stay focused, stay focused.
And I think, you always ask on the interviews, you're like, what would baby entrepreneur say to now you entrepreneur? Yeah. I think it's the same idea. I say this to my kids all the time. I'm like, I've never been a mom to a 7-year-old before, so I'm just figuring it out too. I feel like it's the same as the CEOs of our businesses, right? You started it, you figured it out. You became a 6-figure CEO, you figured it out. You moved it to multi-6, you figured it out. 7, you figure it out. Multi-7, we are figuring it out as we go. Most of us have never been, some people have, and that's why they have multiple businesses. But as we are all in that stage of maybe our first, this is not our first business for Minna and I, but the size of this business is bigger than any one that we've had on our own. So we're figuring it out. And I think as you're doing that, I love what you're saying, Minna, is like, what's your first hire, which we've done an episode on, like what should be your next hire. But then the next part is you may not be in a place where you bring on an integrator right away, but you know that you need to start having some sort of integrator role in your business. And if anything, it could be a course, like you said.
Like a thought process.
Yeah. It could be working with a coach. It could be a mastermind. It could be something else where you start to up-level your mind into allowing yourself to stay in that visioning part. And then you are figuring out the why, the what's worth your time, and how to get those things accomplished. And that's all in the growth of you as a CEO, and allow for it, welcome that growth and that uncomfortable part as you're learning about it. But we really just wanted to open your eyes and your minds to this idea of visionary versus integrator, and starting to understand which one are you. So I hope that this was helpful in sort of understanding it. Again, the book is Rocket Fuel, and we'll put links in the show notes to all of these things. So you can take the test and you can, listen to the book on Audible if you choose. We'll put the link below. Or if you want to purchase the book, we'll put a link on Amazon for you as well. So thank you, everyone. And I hope that this was helpful.
One last thing before we go. We created this podcast as a reminder that you are not alone. Growing a product-based business is hard, and we want to help you through it. So thank you so much for listening, because we truly appreciate it.
Yeah, and we want to give a special shout out to those of you that have left a review. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We read every single one of them, including this one from Emmy Shmemmy. I love it. So it's titled Best Podcast for Product Businesses. And it says, I went from nursing to opening my own bakery and knew nothing about running a business. Jacqueline and Minna provided me with so much guidance and valuable information. I would have been lost without the Product Boss podcast. They have such a wealth of experience and knowledge and are always providing helpful resources and throwing out bits of wisdom. This is a must listen if you're a product biz. Wow.
I love it.
Thank you, Emmy Shmemmy.
Yeah. Thank you, Emmy Shmemmy.
We love reading these, and it really does help us reach more people on the podcast, and we want to continue to support small businesses. So thank you, because that is our mission, and thank you for leaving these reviews.
This episode is over, but it doesn't have to end. Head over to our Facebook group, search for the Product Boss Biz Community, or the link is also in the show notes. Come connect with other product bosses just like you. We'll see you in there.